Well, it sure was a windy Friday around here. Hello, this is Bill Steffen. Wind gusts hit 49 miles an hour, both Saugatuck and also at Grand Haven. 48 miles an hour at Ludington, 47 miles an hour in the Whitehall area. And inland, it wasn't quite as windy. Peak wind gust was 43 at Battle Creek and 40 in Grand Rapids, but made for a windy time. And of course, when you got the balloons trying to get up there in Wayland, it's hard to go up when you got those 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts there. Hi to everybody joining us from the Ottawa News Network. Glad to have you aboard. We got a lot to talk about. A little weather fact to start us out here. If you were to, we have meteorological winter, which is the months of December, January, and February. Meteorological summer would be the 3 months of June, July, and August. And then we have astronomical summer, which starts at the solstice. If you take the warmest 3 months of the year in West Michigan, you come out to June 5th through September 5th. So if you plan your vacations accordingly, that's a picture that we took back in July at the South Haven Beach. You got St. Basil's Church there in the background, but a lot of people at the beach, and that day the water temperature was fairly warm, so there were a fair number of people actually in the water. We get those upwelling days, and you got hundreds of people on the beach and maybe 3 people in the water. So interesting fact to pass along. Lakeshore forecast. We had some big waves. When I checked in the morning, waves were running about 9 to 10 feet out at the buoys. But those are starting to calm down now, and waves should be back closer to 3 to 4 feet here during the day tomorrow. We've got out 3 to 6. Winds will be out of the west at 10 to 20 knots. You can see the water temperatures are still on the cool side, except for South Haven. And again, South Haven's temperature comes from the buoy and not at the shore. Reed's Lake inland was at 69. The highest water temperature I saw at Reed's Lake this summer was 84. So we've come down quite a bit there. The beach hazard statement continues in effect here through Sunday morning, and small craft advisories. So gale warnings come down and they're replaced with the small craft advisories. And it was windy out there, but there were some kite surfers out there. That was kind of neat. High temperatures on Friday. Coldwater, the warmest spot at 68. Look at the South Haven Pier. The warmest temperature there was at 6 a.m. in the morning, and at the Muskegon Pier at 5 a.m. in the morning. We had a cool front come through, and the temperature dropped a few degrees and just kind of stayed there all day. Grand Rapids, the high was 64. Average high temperatures were mid-upper 70s, so that's a pretty cool day here for the first week of September. Muskegon Airport stopped at 61, so it was actually warmer at the lake than it was in inland areas. Cadillac just 57, and Ironwood up in the UP, that's the second day they've had so far this September where they have failed to get to 50 degrees. So pretty cool pattern to pass along. Here's how much rain we got early Friday, and it wasn't much. Just a few hundredths of an inch there at Holland and Muskegon, 100th in Grand Rapids, at Trace and Battle Creek. There was more rain as you went farther north, Wakefield and Detour Village, northern lower there, at 1.11 inches, and Ironwood in the UP. Ironwood and Wakefield are very close together. And of course, their rainfall totals were pretty close together there as well. For today, the sunrise is at 7:12. At one point, the sunrise was at 6:03 back around the time of the solstice. And the sunset at 8:07. Watch as you're driving on sunny days right after sunrise and before sunset. You're kind of looking straight into the east or west, and that can be kind of difficult to do this time of year. The average high temperature has dropped another one to 77. Average low temperature now 57. Record high for today, a sizzling 97. That occurred back in the warm summer of 1954. And the record low temperature was 36 in 1962. We were heading into a very cold winter that year. Let's look at the full moon. The full moon is on for this weekend. It is fullest here on Sunday. It is called the corn moon, with the harvest moon following in early October. Harvest moon is the one that is closest to the equinox. And there is a lunar eclipse with this full moon, but unfortunately, you will not be able to see it here in West Michigan or anywhere in the United States. It's pretty much viewable only in Australia and parts of Asia. So lucky them. Here's a look at severe storm reports from Friday. There were 36 severe reports, no tornadoes, good sign. 6 severe hail reports and 39 severe wind reports. Tennis ball size hail reported near Gainesboro, Tennessee. And a 75-mile-an-hour wind gust at Denton, Texas caused some damage at the airport to a hangar and damaged at least several homes there. So that was interesting. Denton is north of Dallas by a little bit. Okay, the severe weather threat for today, you got a very narrow slight risk, which should be an issue for some of the football games and baseball games out east. That would cover from southwest Maine on down to the Baltimore area, with the marginal risk in the dark green going all the way down to northern Georgia. There is a small area here in lower Michigan where there is a chance of a flash of lightning or a clap of thunder. That would be downwind from Lake Michigan with cold air coming in across the lake. Best bet for that would be probably north of US 10 if we see any of that at all. You can see there'll be more thunderstorms in Florida and also out in the western United States. And then we go to Sunday, and you can see the cooler air pushes south, so the thunderstorms push south as well throughout parts of the south and southwest. No areas outlined for even a marginal risk of severe weather here during the day on Sunday. Our 66-hour rainfall map, look at Florida. Now, yesterday, Miami got 1.7 inches of rain. Fort Lauderdale got 2.13, and they're going to see another round of rain. So a very wet pattern for the Florida Peninsula. There's rain out east. You can see a couple of little yellow areas there indicating where there could be as much as 1.5 inches of rain. And again, look at the rain in the western United States from northern California up towards Seattle, in the mountains of Utah there, and in New Mexico and Arizona. Once again, there could be a shower in Phoenix or Las Vegas or Portland or Seattle. Pretty interesting pattern for parts of the western United States, but nothing much going on in Michigan. Here we are zoomed in to Grand Rapids, and maybe 1/100 of an inch or so for Grand Rapids here, maybe a couple hundredths of an inch. Once you get off to the north of Ludington along the lakeshore up toward Traverse City, a few spots there picking up 1/4 of an inch, but really no heavy rain is expected here. Taking a look right now at the tropics, this is something kind of interesting. That orange X, that was a red X yesterday, and the orange indicates the probability of a tropical storm forming has been reduced. It was up as high as 80%, and now it's down to about 40 to 50%. In any case, we will keep an eye on it. It's entraining a lot of dusty, dry air from the Sahara and areas of the northeast part of the ocean. So something to keep an eye on. But it is aimed toward the Antilles Islands there, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. But again, the chance of a tropical storm down there has gone down. Remember, September 10 is the middle of the hurricane season and the most likely time to see a hurricane, and there's really not much going on here in the Atlantic. If we go to the Pacific, Lorena sure disappeared fast. Boy, that crashed from being a hurricane to a nothing. And it's still pumping a little bit of moisture up into Arizona and New Mexico for some scattered showers and thunder showers there. Don't worry about the yellow hatched area there. That's only a 20% chance of a storm developing there. But we have Hurricane Kiko, which is a pretty strong storm. Nice eye to the storm. It was up to Category 4. As it moves toward Hawaii, it will pass just a little bit north of Hawaii, but some of the bands will be passing through, so some rain expected there, some gusty winds, and some pretty high surf. You know, the surfers get excited when they see something like this, that area up around Waimea Bay, north side of the island. They're going to see some big waves there. But fortunately, as hurricanes often do, this one will weaken into a kind of a minor tropical storm as it passes on by. So still a significant storm system, but not a hurricane or anything like that for the Hawaiian areas. Now, a couple other things here. This is the map that comes to us from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. And nothing going on in the Indian Ocean, as is usually the case. But there's a couple circles. There's one circle there, 97W, near just west of the Philippines. We're keeping an eye on a depression, providing some rain there. And tropical storm Paipa moved along parts of Japan. And let me tell you, that was a much more potent storm, even though it didn't look that way. There was one fatality. A man in his 80s was swept off a pier, I believe, the last I heard of reading some of the Japanese press there. There were a number of injuries connected with it. Some of those were traffic accidents on slippery, wet roads. but they really got kind of clobbered there. There were trees and some branches down, and some power lines were down as well. The center of the storm passed just south of Kyoto and just southeast of Tokyo, but that will be moving out to into the center of the ocean, and it will fall apart pretty quickly as it finds some dry air. Our headlines: cool weekend coming up, high temperatures mid 60s, could even be low to mid 60s. An isolated shower or sprinkle is possible both Saturday or Sunday, but it won't last long, and most of the day will turn out to be dry. And winds will be a little brisk, but certainly not as windy as it was on Friday. Temperature today up to 64, about a 35% chance of picking up a shower. Low temperatures overnight in the upper 40s. Humidity drops to 55%. Winds will be west and about 10 to 20 miles an hour strongest at the immediate lakeshore. Here's high temperatures for today. We're talking 60s here in lower Michigan, the southern lower Michigan. As you get to northern lower Michigan, it's going to be a chilly day. Look at those readings: 65 up around Houghton, or 56, the high temperature up around Houghton Lake. Up in the UP, we got some 50s showing up there. There's a 53 for Gaylord. It may actually get a degree or two warmer than that, but boy, that's a chilly day for early September there. And then we move on to Sunday and show you temperatures warm up a couple degrees, 65 for Grand Rapids. Almost the same right at the lakeshore, 63 South Haven and Ludington, 60 for Traverse City, and yet another day in the 50s up there across a good portion of upper Michigan. 5-day forecast looks like this. There'll be about a 30 or 40% chance of a light shower or sprinkle today, 20% on Sunday, and then we should be dry here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with a nice warming trend. We go from the mid 60s up into the upper 70s here by Wednesday of next week. It looks fairly dry next week. So like I said, if we do get a shower over the weekend and you get a few hundredths of an inch of rain, try not to complain because like I said, in an overall dry pattern that we've got right now, we should be grateful for whatever rain we get. And the 8 to 14 day outlook continues to spread warm air from the plain states into the Great Lakes. So after this cool period here, temperatures should warm up. It's got a ways to go to kind of erase the cool start here to the month, the first week, but I think it will eventually be able to do that. It will be cool and a bit wet on the East Coast. Below average rainfall trend will continue here in West Michigan into the middle of the month. So that's a look at our weather. All in all, a rather cool weekend here, but really a pretty nice weekend. Winds toned down just a bit. That's good.
Those first few days of fall always feel so cold.
Yeah, they do. You get acclimated to. I remember reading an article in National Geographic about how these natives used to walk around, in 30-degree temperatures in Tierra del Fuego, and they just have a little T-shirt on or something like that. And I was like, how can you do that? But you do get acclimated to the weather like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, viewer question. Hi, Bill. I'm part of a lake association in Kent County. We're looking at our lake levels, which are at a 30-year low from some accounts. Do you have any historical weather to explain rainfall, sunshine, temperature, snowfall that might impact lake levels? It's an emotional topic for many landowners. We're looking for understanding. Thank you. Tom.
Well, that is an amazingly difficult question to answer because each local area is different. While we've had way below average rainfall this summer in the Grand Rapids area, Battle Creek has had above average rainfall, and the lakes down there are doing much better. Here's a look at some of the rainfall deficits. Now, we have a short-term deficit this year. We're 7.39 inches below average for 2025. That's pretty significant. I mean, your lake would be 7-8 inches higher just based on rain falling into the lake, much less runoff. And then we were below average for the past 6 years, including this year. I do think the average in Grand Rapids is slightly higher than it would be if we took a 1,000-year average. We're taking a 30-year average, and we had some wet years mixed in there. So those readings down at the bottom are not extraordinary, but the cumulative rainfall deficit here has certainly made a difference. Every lake is different. Some lakes have water that's kind of regulated, and a lake like Gun Lake or Crockery Lake, for instance, there's a little bit of a dam at the west end there where the water kind of exits out, and they can keep the water level pretty constant. But there's other lakes that rely upon rainfall and lower evaporation rates, and that has certainly been an issue this year. Look down at the bottom, my last line right there. I looked up the water level of Lake Michigan, and it is now 8 inches below average, which means there's a little bit more beach out there than we might normally see. And that trend will likely continue. We reach a high in terms of lake levels here during late June, early July, and then the lowest readings in terms of how far it goes down is usually about early March before the rain and the snow melt starts to push it back up again. But lake levels do vary by quite a bit naturally. The water level of Lake Michigan varies by almost 6.5 feet over a 50-year period. So you can have the Lake Michigan shoreline, you can have the connecting lakes, Lake Macatawa, Lake Muskegon, Mona Lake, Duck Lake, all those lakes that connect to Lake Michigan. Those water levels will go up and down as well. So it's something you got to deal with. Nature's big and powerful, and it's something that's sometimes difficult for man to manipulate. We can do it on a small scale, like pump up the heat in the house here, for instance, when it gets cold outside. But in terms of, changing the direction of a Lake Michigan water level, I can't do much about that. You got to live with what you get.
All right. Thanks, Tom. And Bill, did you see this? Snow in the air at Eagle Harbor Thursday, September 4. Way too early.
Yeah, that's that could have been snow, and it could have been a little bit of sleet mixing in, but it was very cold aloft. And sometimes it starts out as snow in the clouds and doesn't quite make it down to the ground. It melts on the way. But yes, up at Eagle Harbor, they did see a little bit of snow, and it is way too early to see that on September 4th. Fortunately, after a chilly start to this month of September, we are going to be seeing significantly warmer temperatures. And it'll be great for people to go up there and see the fall colors, which should peak in the UP about the first week in August. Excuse me, first week in October.
All right, we got video today. Tom sent us a video of wind in Holland. So we're just going to play the whole thing. It's about 20 seconds long, and we'll be right back.
Okay. That was amazing. The first thing I noticed is look at how the wind has elevated the water level of Lake Michigan, and the waves were crashing over where they were, and then kind of collecting and then moving back out to the water again. So that was interesting. On a day when you get 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts like this, the water level here in Michigan is a couple of inches higher than the water level in Milwaukee, because the wind is pushing on the water, and it actually causes the water to push toward the Michigan shore. And then, of course, when the wind dies off, then the water kind of diminishes and goes back down again.
All right.
Thank you, Tom. That was great. Great video.
Okay, more on the Michigan thumb fire of 1881. On September 6th, the East Coast reported that the sky was yellow. And at the time, information wasn't shared as quickly, and a lot of people didn't know that it was because of the fire. And a couple of religious groups put on their ascension robes because they thought the world was ending.
Really? Wow. Well,
yep. So this is a graphic that I found, and the shaded portions just in the west are the parts that were not burnt.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. And of course, that's back when it was a forested area. Most of that right now is agricultural land. And, I would imagine that there could be a fire when the corn all dries out or the soybeans dry out, but it'd be difficult to have something like that again.
Yeah, what that was then at the time.
Yeah, interesting.
All right, grocery stores were not always self-service. Back in the day, you had to ask a clerk to pick up everything you wanted. So September 6, 1916, we got the first self-service, and it was a Piggly Wiggly in Memphis, Tennessee.
And we still have Piggly Wiggly, and we still have Tennessee.
Yes.
That's interesting. If you go down to the museum in Grand Rapids, the public museum, they have the old-time Gaslight Village there, which is really neat. I've always loved it. I remember seeing the
Mhm.
Gaslight Village they had at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago for a while.
Mhm.
But yeah, and they had either a ladder that scooted across from left to right on rollers that were they could crawl up and get a can of peas for you or something like that, or they would
Mhm.
have a giant claw, and there was on a pole, and this claw they could grab onto a can and put it down in your basket there.
Mhm. All right, September 6th is Hummingbird Day. There are 366 species of hummingbirds. Hummingbirds are only found in the Americas, but most of them are in Central and South America. There are only 15 to 25 species in the United States.
I did not know that. Interesting
Yeah.
information you can find here on the blog. Uh,
Yeah.
366 species, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And of
I
course,
guess.
we have great photography now, which allows us to get a picture of a hummingbird in mid-flight, like you see over there on the right. A lot of the hummingbirds, I think, are already in the process of leaving. They're one of the first birds to leave, and I think one of the are they one of the last to come back? You can there's actually a website that you can look at where you can actually see the progression of the hummingbirds as they move south, and then in the fall here where they exit and move off toward the where they're moving off to the south, and then they're coming back in the spring to the north.
One of them said wintry mix in Michigan, September 4. Oh no, I'm getting my friends and we're getting out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah, that's about it. It's interesting where birds migrate to. Um, we have robins here in Michigan, and they migrate south, but some of them will stop in Tennessee or Mississippi, Alabama, where you are in the Birmingham area. You might in the wintertime see a robin, which in the summertime is here in Grand Rapids, but during the wintertime we'll go down there. Robins eat worms and insects, and as long as there's no snow on the ground and they can poke around in trees and on the ground and find something to eat, then they're apt to stick around. And there's always a very few robins that hang around here for the winter. They've usually got good real estate and a source of food in the woods, but they tend to sometimes come out in flocks of 10 or 20 in the month of February or thereabouts, and they'll find a tree that's got berries on it, and just chomp away and eat them all up in like an hour and a half or thereabouts, and then move on to the next tree. Mountain ash. We used to have a mountain ash in our front yard, and I remember one year we saw some robins descend on that during the month of February, eat them up. Nice picture here from Wilderness State Park, the campground area there from Dave, and that would be a great place to be. You can see what looks like a path there where they've kind of put a fence up there to kind of keep you from going through there a little bit. But
Doesn't look like it's going to keep most people from going anywhere.
yeah, right. But you don't want to destroy the dunes or anything like that. You want to keep them going. Normally, humans push the sand back down the dunes there, and then the wind pushes the sand back up again.
Thanks, Dave. Great picture.
Mm-hmm.
And rainbow from
Yeah,
Sally.
yeah, very, very pretty.
Mm-hmm.
With the blue sky there in the background, and you got the rainbow all the way down to the ground. It looks like it's pretty much a full arc, and it's interesting where you have the brighter part of the rainbow, which is over on the left side, close to the ground and closer to where the blue sky is, and where you have the darker part of the cloud, the rainbow's not quite as bright.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Thank
thanks,
you,
Sally,
Sally.
for sending that to brighten our day. And we've got one from John Kimball.
That should be a beautiful sunset here in Grand Rapids. We mentioned how the daylight is shrinking here at the rate of almost 3 minutes per day. So enjoy the sun while we got it. We got a lot of cloudy days ahead here as we go into a Michigan winter.
I like how the sun's reflecting on the lake in this
Yeah,
one.
isn't that pretty?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a lovely spot. And a beautiful summer's day for Matt.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we got those beautiful puffy cumulus clouds, which are, those are about a mile above ground, maybe a little less than that. And they're made up of supercooled water droplets. And I think, Michelle, as you know from being on airplanes, as you go up after you take off from an airport, the temperature gets pretty cold pretty fast as you go up, even in the summertime.
And you also explained to me why the plane shakes a little bit when you're going up like that, because of temperature variations as you pass over asphalt and grass and other
Yep.
things like that.
You get updrafts there and downdrafts, and when you get an updraft on one side of the plane and a downdraft on the other, it can kind of cause you to wobble around a little bit. The clear air turbulence is the tough stuff. You can look out and see where thunderstorms are and know there's turbulence there that you can avoid, but when you have clear air turbulence, it's all of a sudden kaboom. That's why people need to be seat belted even when they're not, when you're on the plane, even when you're not walking around. You want to keep that seat belt on and stay in your seat.
And what clouds are we looking at here from John Scully?
Interesting there. It would be, we got what looks like some alto cumulus clouds there in the top part of the picture. More Q maybe down to the south, but beautiful, beautiful scene, blue sky and sunshine.
And another one from Mike Doherty.
And that's the Platte River, I think, as it empties into.
Don't know how he's related to John, but this is from Mike Doherty. Yes, lovely place to be.
Neat. And you can see the clouds over the land area in the distance, but not over the lake to the left, where you don't get the thermals producing the updrafts that would give you the cumulus clouds. There's actually slightly less rainfall in July at the lakeshore than there is in inland areas.
I was always jealous of the lakeshore people when there were school closings because it seemed like Grand Haven always closed a lot more than Grand Rapids did.
Yeah, they get a little bit more snow. In the wintertime, most wintertime. Some years it's pretty identical lakeshore and inland areas, and we don't get much lake effect and it's warmer. But in those years when you get lake effect, it can be substantial. Well, we've reached the end of our presentation here. Welcome back, by the way, to you and everybody. Thanks. I was going to say we want to thank Alex for helping to put the shows together here, and you and all the fun stuff.
He does so much behind the scenes. Thank you, Alex.
And the fun stuff that you come up with too. But we have more for you to share we have more to share with you at billsteffen.com. And at also Bill Steffen 616 on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us, and have yourself a great weekend.